Hi, I'm Sean, and I'd like to share with you what I've learned about canning fruits and vegetables this summer. As much as anything, this is a story of my progression from basic backyard gardener to urban farmer. When I first moved into my current house, the backyard was a bare dirt pit with nothing but a leftover burn pile in the middle of it. However, over a span of 2 years, my husband and I transformed it into a beautiful garden space where we usually grow things like strawberries, tomatoes, and peppers. Then, one day, chickens became legal in my city, and my family decided to buy a couple. And then a couple more, and a couple more. It was time to build a coop. So we spent most of the spring putting one together, which was wonderful, in that it allowed us to expand our garden even further, enabling me to raise cucumbers, squash, green beans, and so on around the outside of the run. It gave them shade, and soon we had eggs and plenty of fertilizer for our new crops. Already being overrun with fruits and vegetables, I knew I had to do something. Even with giving bunches to friends and neighbors, we were still wasting too much food. So I began to research canning and jelly making. I went out and purchased a basic canning kit. I didn't want to spend a lot of money in case it was an absolute disaster. The kit included a magnet, jar tongs, a funnel, and a stick thing that I'm still not exactly sure what I'm supposed to do with it. And the first recipe I decided to try was jelly. Well, actually, I tried blackberry jam. It's chunkier, and therefore I thought it would be easier, which was not the case. Then I tried grape jelly, spicy pickled banana peppers, and jalapeno jelly. All of them turned out really well. Now, due to the fact that while I've been gardening for years, I still can't figure out how to stagger my carrot harvest. I'm making a big batch of pickled spicy carrots and green beans, the kind that were served in my favorite Mexican restaurant when I grew up. One of the first things I learned this summer was that you need to gather all of your materials and have them ready to use. My chef friend calls this mise en place. Things move fast when you start cooking, and there's no time to search the drawers for your measuring cups or ladles or anything really. So once I'd gathered my materials, I found a recipe that I thought I would like. I chose this particular recipe because the majority of the ingredients could come from my garden, and it seemed pretty straightforward. Then I had to gather my ingredients. I did change the recipe a little bit by adding green beans and some fresh jalapenos to go with the canned ones that the recipe called for. Normally, I wouldn't deviate from a recipe, but I felt comfortable doing it with this one. It was simple enough. One of the things that I learned early on this summer was that following the instructions on time is absolutely essential to a successful recipe. Another thing that worked for me was using the same water to sanitize the jars as I used to vacuum seal later. Once the jars have been sanitized, you can take them out of the water bath and then turn up the heat so the water starts to boil in preparation for the vacuum sealing. It is important that you leave the lids in the hot water until the very last moment to create a better seal on the glass jar. Yet another one of the lessons I learned occurred early when I made my first attempt at pickling. As you can see, my jars aren't anywhere close to full because I didn't pack my pickled peppers tight enough into their jars. When you're working with raw or parboiled vegetables, it's important to stuff the containers as full as you can. Initially, I tried to use my funnel to put the carrots into the jars, which did not work well for 2 reasons. First, obviously the carrots don't fit very well, and the second, I needed to ensure that all of the garlic was removed from the final product. If not prepared properly, you can get botulism from garlic, so I don't even take the risk. I just remove it after cooking. I ended up ladling the vegetables into the jars and mashing them down with a spoon. After I got as many vegetables as I could, only then did I add liquid over the top using the funnel to keep it as neat as possible. Then it was time to remove the lids from the hot water and put them on the top of the jars. It's really important that when you do this step, the top of the jar is completely clean. Once the lids are hand tightened, they go into the boiling water for 5 to 15 minutes. When they're done in the boiling water, you've hit the home stretch. All you have to do is put them aside and listen for the lids to pop as they make that vacuum seal. If they don't, you can still use them. You just have to refrigerate them immediately. So, there you go. My spicy carrots and green beans have joined the rest of my experiments from this last summer. And hopefully, they will taste just as good as all of the others. And through watching this video, I hope you've picked up some tips to use in your own kitchen. Now, the last thing, I have to call the cleanup crew, which luckily, in my house, most days, isn't me. So excuse me, Katerina, I need you in the kitchen, please.